70 years ago tomorrow, a headline 6 years in the making finally delivered the news Utahns and everyone else were waiting for. And this is exactly how it looked. VE Day is here. The war in Europe is over. The news prompted millions around the world to cut loose in the streets. But an unfinished war put a damper on celebrations at home.
May 8th, 1945, 4:01 Mountain War time. The nearly 6-year-old war in Europe is finally over.
General Eisenhower informs me that the forces of Germany have surrendered to the United Nations.
The day is declared Victory in Europe Day by the Allies. Millions of people celebrate wildly in the streets of London, Paris, and cities across the European continent. And a huge crowd, mad with sheer joy, overwhelms New York's Times Square.
It was quite wild in New York and Chicago and some other places. The celebration in Salt Lake City was fairly subdued.
A photo taken that day shows a relatively calm Main Street, a far different scene compared to 1918, when thousands of Utahns packed downtown to celebrate the end of the First World War.
Our rejoicing is sobered and subdued by a supreme consciousness of the terrible price we have paid.
Giving thanks for that terrible price brought many Utahns into churches on VE Day. There was another reason for prayer and restraint. The victory was only half won.
When the last Japanese division has surrendered unconditionally, then only will our fighting job be done.
There was this idea that, my husband and my brother are still in the Pacific because that's where most of the Utahns had gone.
We're back here with a bunch of duffel bags.
Dixon Stewart rode the back of a tank into Germany, a sergeant in General Patton's Third Army. He says he knew victory was close at hand when the Americans and Russians met at the Elbe River.
That cut the German army in half, and it made Germany a little strip of land.
Stewart was near the Elbe when he got word of Germany's surrender.
Of course, we were glad that the fighting was over, but the war hadn't been won yet. My enlistment was for the duration, so I'm still stuck.
Hermann Goering was also stuck. Once Germany's number 2 Nazi, Goering earned a spot on Adolf Hitler's hit list by suggesting the war was lost. Goering beelined it for the American line. The U.S. Army sent a small group to guard the former Reich Marshal and his family at a nearby castle. The group's commander, Lieutenant Golden Sill of Layton, Utah.
My dad just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
A photo of Goering's surrender hangs in Sill's cafe, opened by Lieutenant Sill after the war. Dave and John Sill say their father found Goering to be a gregarious, sociable man.
He talked about how friendly he was as far as offering food and accommodations there at the castle. He wanted everybody to toast his surrender.
But Goering's self-indulgence bothered Sill.
As he had fought through Germany, some of the places that they had been, and to see some of the German people and how needy they were in that, and then to see somebody like him living this life of luxury.
Sill's mission ended the next day when he delivered Goering to U.S. 7th Army headquarters. Back in Salt Lake, the lights on the LDS temple flipped on for the first time in 3.5 years as Utahns looked for a final victory.
I think probably in Utah people realized it more than anywhere else, especially back east, that this wasn't over yet, and let's kind of hold off a little bit until the whole thing is done.
Andrew Wittenberg, KSL 5 News.
There's the iconic photo. That final victory came only 3 months later when Japan surrendered unconditionally to the Allies. Then Utahns really cut loose in the streets. KSL is a sponsor of Utah Honor Flight, which flies surviving World War II veterans to see their memorial in Washington, D.C. To donate, log on to utahhonorflight.org.